The best kind of fake news is the kind that's meticulously planned in order to capture murderous Russian spies. Welcome back to What's Trending. I'm Shira Lazar. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more trending stories daily. We're counting down the 5 craziest fake deaths of all time, starting with one that just happened. At number 5, Arkady Babchenko. The Ukrainian journalist was reported murdered on May 29th, apparently discovered by his wife in their home.
Arkady возвращался из магазина. Он получил выстрелы в спину и погиб уже в карете скорой помощи от полученных ран.
Ukrainian police even released this photo of Babchenko shot multiple times in the back, covered in blood. But at a news conference on May 31st, Babchenko showed up, revealing the entire thing was staged as a sting operation to capture the Russian spies who wanted him dead. But Babchenko's friends and colleagues mourned him, and the operation sparked a discussion about whether the elaborate ruse was necessary. He, however, does not regret his decision. He said, "When someone comes to you and says, 'Here's an order for your killing,' do you proudly say, 'I'm thinking about the media's reputation? Let me be killed. Carry on.'" He did, however, apologize to those who knew him for faking his own death and causing them to grieve in order to capture his would-be killers.
Ну, во-первых, я, наверное, хотел бы извиниться за то, что всем вам пришлось пережить, и за то, через что вам всем пришлось пройти, потому что я и друзей, и коллег хоронил много раз, и я знаю это тошнотное чувство, тошнотное блевотное чувство, когда...
There's actually a disturbing trend in Russia of journalists critical of the Kremlin being killed or dying under mysterious conditions. Though the fake death has been criticized, it certainly looks like this one worked out in Arkady Babchenko's favor. After all, he's still alive. At number 4, David Friedland. Friedland was a New Jersey politician who served in the State General Assembly and then later in the State Senate until his indictment and eventual conviction on racketeering charges. Friedland and his dad were found guilty of accepting $360,000 in bribes. In 1985, Friedland was still awaiting sentencing for the conviction when he disappeared while scuba diving in the Bahamas and was presumed to have died. Investigators knew Friedland would try to run and tracked him around the world, from Paris and Venice to Kenya, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Then in 1987, a man living a flashy lifestyle in the Maldives caught authorities' attention. Despite using a fake name, Friedland became the owner of 5 successful scuba diving businesses and lived a life that exalted his success and comfort. When Friedland returned to the United States in handcuffs, he said he was tired of running and that it was good to be back. He was ultimately sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and was released in 1997. At number 3, Ken Kesey. Kesey most notably wrote the acclaimed novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But in 1965, he was arrested for marijuana possession. And in the 60s, it wasn't as easy just to head down to the dispensary and get Granddaddy Purple or Alaskan Thunder. He was facing some serious time. So he parked his truck on a cliff overlooking the ocean and left a suicide note that read, "Ocean, ocean, I'll beat you in the end." He then jumped in a friend's trunk and they hightailed it to Mexico. He headed back to the States a few months later, probably thinking that things had cooled down. But little did he know that the arm of the law has a long memory. Kesey was arrested and spent 5 months in prison. Number 2, Krusty the Clown. This is the only fictional fake death on the list, but it is one of the most memorable. In the season 7 episode, Bart the Fink, Bart attempts to get Krusty's signature by writing him a check for 25 cents. But when he checks his monthly bank statement, he sees the check has been stamped by an account called Cayman Islands Offshore Holding Corporation. When he brings the check to the bank, it's discovered that Krusty's one of the biggest tax cheats in the country. The IRS takes control of everything, ruining his show and forcing Krusty to auction off some of his most prized possessions.
Oh, my beloved pornography!
Distraught, Krusty flies his private plane over Springfield, eventually crashing it into a mountain above Evergreen Terrace.
Krusty the Clown is dead.
He's mourned in Springfield by his friends and colleagues. But pretty soon, Bart starts seeing Krusty everywhere he goes. Driving through his neighborhood, at Dr. Hibbert's office, even in the ocean, or lake, or whatever body of water is in Springfield. Then, after a false alarm,
Some customers!
they find Krusty, who's been pretending to be a man named Rory B. Bellows. He admits that he faked his death to get out of his considerable debt, and they convince him to come back to life so he can prove he's better than everyone else. Faking another death, Rory B. Bellows to cash in on the insurance money. It was an interesting plot twist, considering that Homer faked his own death a few episodes earlier.
Stop frolicking and get to work.
Right away, Mr. Smithers. I'll just walk across these slippery rock. Ah!
Oh no, he's going over the falls!
Oh, good. He snagged that tree branch.
And we're going way back in time for our #1 craziest fake death, Timothy Dexter. Dexter was a poor Massachusetts farm boy who bounced around odd jobs in his youth before marrying a wealthy older widow named Elizabeth Frothingham. But the Boston elite didn't accept him as one of their own. In an effort to bankrupt Dexter, they encouraged him to invest heavily in the newly issued continental currency, widely seen as being a poor investment. But then the American Revolution happened, and after the war, the value of the currency skyrocketed, making Dexter a millionaire. It's exactly like Bitcoin. Despite his success, though, Dexter's neighbors still hated him, thinking his attitude boorish and his taste tacky. He never felt loved, so he did what anyone would do, and he faked his own death. He told his wife and children to follow along with his ruse and announced to all of Boston society that he was dead. More than 3,000 people came to his funeral ceremony, through which Dexter stayed hidden and watched. But was Dexter happy with his funeral turnout? Not really. In fact, attendees discovered him attacking his wife with a cane, since he thought her performance wasn't believable enough. She was apparently laughing with the guests instead of appearing visibly bereaved. And if that makes you like Timothy Dexter a bit less, well, don't you worry, because he died for real a few years later in 1806. Do you have a favorite fake death that we left off this list? Let us know in the comments below. And be sure to like and subscribe for more of What's Trending.